Thank you, Natalie. So on your screen, we have the timeline, and the key dates are in yellow highlight. The first key date is July 1st, 2020, which is the start of the grant performance period. So what does that mean? That means that if you are awarded a grant through this program, then your pre-construction costs like CEQA, public engagement to design the project, other design costs, permits, etc. Those pre-construction costs going back to July 1st of 2020 can be reimbursed. From now through the application deadline, we encourage you to consider your potential project sites, do community engagement with the public. We have some COVID-19 guidance, and we'll also give you some, we'll go into the criteria today to explain what the parameters are for this program. The final thing is to complete your application using the checklist on page 11 of the application guide. So you'll plan to complete that. I think your target should be September, which gives you a little more extra time through November to meet the next key date, and that is in yellow, which is November 5, 2021. So by or before November 5th of this year, you'll submit the application online. On this program webpage, we will have a link to an online application system. That system link should be available sometime in early spring of this year. So you'll have roughly about 6 months to use the online system to prepare your application. The system itself is very helpful because it's going to have technical assistance links within the online application system. So we're happy and excited to provide that for you as well. Grant awards should be announced sometime in spring of 2022. And as Cedric mentioned, 23.1 million is available. And your goal will be to complete your project by March of 2025. Okay, so please make that note. Complete your project by March of 2025, which allows for enough time to do the final site inspection and process the final payment before the funds expire, which is June 30, 2025. June 30, 2025. Here's a key point. If the project you are currently considering cannot be complete by spring of 2025, there's two potential pathways. Pathway one is to scale your project down into a phase that can be complete and open to the public for recreation by March 2025. If you have a type of project which you have to do it all at once, you can't phase it down, you can't scale it back, and you know your project cannot be complete by March of 2025, then the next pathway is to find a different project site potentially, but at least come up with a different project scope. Okay, so bottom line is come up with a scope that you can complete by March 2025. Okay, the next document for you as an overview is called the competitive chart. Okay, so it's on your screen. This is a 2-page, I'll call it a cheat sheet. This is a 2-page cheat sheet which provides the key aspects found in the application guide. So if you look on the right-hand side, there's a yellow column which says application guide page, and that is where you can find more information about that item. We haven't organized this document in order of page references. We are going to, it's organized by what I would call the most fundamental things you have to consider, which is basic eligibility first. So we have a question from Floyd. Are you going to give us links to the cheat sheets? I will I'll copy and paste. Can someone please, Richard, can you please copy and paste the first 3 documents from technical assistance on our website? Post those links in the chat feature for the current 3 documents I'm currently covering. Thank you. And so Floyd, yes, the links are on the website. The website is www.parks.ca.gov/RPP, and you can find the documents there. We'll also have someone post them for you as well in the chat feature. Thank you. So going back to the competitive chart, if you look at the first 5 items, these are the basics. Number 1, is the applicant eligible? I want to note that this program is different, and that's based on how the Bond Act was written. Cities are not eligible applicants or grantees in this program. I'm bringing attention to that because there are quite a bit of cities in this webinar. However, we do recognize that some city parks are regional in nature and that they do truly have a statewide draw that covers the entire region. So if you want to apply for a regional park that's owned and operated by the city, there is a way to do that, and that is to partner with an eligible applicant, which could be a eligible district, a nonprofit, or the county or a joint powers authority. So we'll cover this in more detail, but I just want to make sure you're aware that for this unique program, cities are not eligible. The program is competitive. Up to 3 million may be awarded, so be aware that funding is not guaranteed. Item 3, you'll have to also understand site control. So you want to find a project site that you either own or are proposing to acquire to become the landowner, or it will have to make sure you're aware that lease agreements or turnkey have to be with an eligible type of agency for that lease agreement or turnkey to be eligible. We'll also discuss that in great detail today. And finally, the project has to qualify as a regional park, and we'll go through that as well today. So those are the basics as a clue. Now, how do you use this chart? This is for your own use. What you want to do is go through this row by row and answer the question. We've designed this so you can answer yes or no. If you answer no to any of these rows, that's a red flag for you that either the project may not be eligible or it may not be competitive. So the second thing we'll encourage you to do is ask yourself, how can I get to yes? It might be a minor adjustment, a very minor adjustment to your project design. It could be a little more significant, like an adjustment to your project scope, or as significant as finding a different project site, like a different regional park to apply for. Okay, so this is again, this is your cheat sheet. It's a handy tool just to make sure you're on track and make sure that you can get to yes for each question in this 2-page document. The final overview document for you, and then we'll get into the main application guide. The final overview document is called Best Practices. Okay, so Best Practices is also 2-page document. The first page reemphasizes what Cedric just mentioned, and that is we are going to encourage you today to approach this program from the mindset of how can you score as many points as possible. One of the common questions we get is, what's the most frequent mistake that applicants make for competitive grant programs? And some of us have been doing this work for 20 years, so we've seen quite a bit. And I'd say the most common mistake that we find is that an applicant may have a predetermined project and doesn't make any adjustments to what's called the project selection criteria section. And that is how you score the points. Now, there could be some times where a predetermined project is actually a great fit and no adjustments are necessary, but often there is room for a few tweaks here and there, a few adjustments to score more points. So today, when we go through the project selection criteria section, you are going to figure out how can I score as many points as possible. And the criteria, there's 10 criteria. They all have scoring rubrics in there to provide additional guidance for you, showing you how to score points. You will use the project selection criteria section as your concept level guide to plan your project. And that's about scope and location. Okay, Sam, please go to page 2 of this best practices document. Okay, page 2 covers 5 general steps to approach this program. Step 1, just covered it. Use the application guide as your planning tool. Step 2 is to find a project site that best meets the intent of this program. The community fact finder tool will be discussed when we get into criteria number 10. And it's really only a 3-point factor in this program. So income is literally 3% of this overall program. But those 3 points can help. So we'll discuss how to use the community fact finder specific for this program. As Cedric mentioned, the existing park acres per 1,000 residents is not scored, it's not considered, it's not a factor for this program. We're just looking at median household income. Item 3 is to obtain design input from the public, from communities in nearby communities from your region, and we'll give you guidance on that again. And step 4, there's a project timeline in the application guide. Okay, so use that project timeline to help figure out how can you accomplish layers of local reviews, permits, other planning, pre-construction steps, so that once the grant's awarded, you're really ready to go. You're ready to make this project happen quickly. And then finally, item 5 is the application checklist. That is on page 11. That lists the application requirements on one page. Okay, so at that, we will now go into the main document, which is the application guide. Thank you very much.